Welcome to the Everyday Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Al D. This podcast helps employees and entrepreneurs develop and use the leadership skills they need to be an effective and inspiring leader in their work and in their life. In each episode, I'll provide pragmatic and practical actions as well as leadership concepts that you can use and implement each and every day to become the leader that you're meant to be. Welcome to the Everyday Leadership Podcast. My name is Al D. I'm the host of the podcast. Today's episode is all about something I call organizational acumen. And organizational acumen is your knowledge and understanding of the visible and invisible norms inside of your company, including the ways of working, how decisions are made, who gets rewarded, and then being able to use that knowledge to navigate towards your own personal career goals and aspirations. Okay, that was a mouthful, but let's break this down and really show you why it matters to your own career. So we all have our own goals and aspirations in terms of what we want out of our job, what we want out of our career, how we want to advance or grow, how we want to stand out, etc. And those are important. But in order for us to be successful, we must also understand the context as well as the environment that we are in. The reason why is because in order for us to be able to be successful, we all need the help of other people around us to be able to achieve those goals. Yes, individual effort absolutely matters, but we all do need the support of others. And so the only way that we can get that support is if we actually understand the culture, the environment, and the people within it, and the relationships that exist between all of those. And that's where organizational acumen comes into play. And so organizational acumen, again, is your knowledge, insight, and understanding of the visible and invisible norms inside of your company. These can be the ways of working, how decisions get made, who gets rewarded, and then being able to use that knowledge to navigate towards your own personal goals and aspirations. Again, all of us work in a system and an environment that's bigger than just ourselves and our aspirations. If we want to be successful, whether that is working towards a career goal or just being more effective in the job that we have, we must understand the system, the people within it, the specific rewards, the specific behaviors that are important. And with that information, we can make informed choices about the actions we want to take, how we want to go about building relationships, the ways in working we need to pay attention to, the behaviors that we want to model so that we can be successful. And when we pay attention to the culture, the specific norms, the rewards, and kind of the relationship between those, we then can understand how we want to use that knowledge to be able to effectively navigate these structures, as well as to gain the support, the buy-in, and the capital that we need in order to succeed. Now, someone may listen to this and you may come back and say, you know what, all you're talking about is politics. And there is a certain truth to that, for sure. But the reality of it is that even when you do have a clear path towards a goal, you do need the support of others in order to being able to achieve it. And while that you may shun yourself at politics or maybe don't love the idea behind it, I think that the reality of it is that if you want to be successful in that environment, you're going to have to acknowledge the realities that exist. And part of the realities that do exist really comes out in being able to define that organizational acumen. And when you've got a high level of organizational acumen or organizational IQ, as I like to call it sometimes, you start to see the interconnected nature of people, of culture, of rewards. And you can use that to inform how you navigate the organization, how you start to build a coalition of relationships with other people, and how you maybe work towards a specific goal that you might have. And a lot of times I like to think of the famous quote from Zig Ziglar, who once said, "You can have everything in life you want if you will just help other people get what they want." And I think the same is true in the context of your career. And I want to reframe the quote as saying, in your job and in your career, you can have anything that you want, but only when you understand what others around you want. And I think that's important because it speaks to the fact that we exist in this organization that has other people around us. And when there are other people around us, that intuitively means that we need their support. But if we need their support, while there always will be people who maybe act out of the kindness of their hearts, the reality of it is that other people want things too. And if we better understand those dynamics, we can then start to think about how do we get what we want in ways that other people can get what they want to. And so you may be listening to all this and you may be thinking to yourself, so basically, do I have to bend over backwards to just help other people? And look, it doesn't mean that always is the case. It does mean that you do need to be thoughtful sometimes and being aware around what's going on around the broader system at large. But I think the reality of it is that you should feel empowered to want to have a certain career goal and to work towards it. What I'm only suggesting is that for whatever goal that you might have or whatever you are thinking about, you just want to make sure that you're paying attention to your surroundings around you, including the people that are important, the behaviors that are rewarded and valued, the behaviors that are not rewarded or valued, the relationships that exist between maybe one group of people and another group of people. But I think why this is so important and why I think it's an important skill that you have and that you use throughout your career is because for the majority of your career, you're going to be wanting to get things done to achieving goals. If you can understand how to develop your organizational acumen, your organizational IQ, and use it, you're going to be much more effective at being able to achieve whatever you want to achieve. And with understanding organizational acumen, you're going to be able to better understand how other people and teams might be able to assist you in achieving your goals. You're going to be able to understand the specific processes, the specific ways of working, the specific structures or mechanisms that exist that can either help you achieve your goals or in some cases may hinder you from achieving your goals. You're going to be able to understand specific behaviors or values that are rewarded inside of your organization so that when you are trying to achieve your goal, you start modeling some of those behaviors or values as well so that you can be rewarded. And then what you're also going to be able to do is you're going to be able to understand not just the explicit norms, but maybe those implicit or unwritten norms in your organization that they're not written down anywhere, but most savvy people know that they're important to pay attention to in order to be successful in anything that you do. Okay, I want to give some examples of how you can increase your organizational acumen and what you can focus on as you're thinking about how to grow in your career or how to work towards something, say maybe a promotion or trying to get more exposure for your ideas or trying to get an opportunity or an experience or more exposure. And so assuming that's one of your goals, here are some examples of how you can increase as well as apply your organizational acumen. So one of those is just by simply learning and taking the time to understand how the performance evaluation system and process works inside your organization. This is critical, particularly for anyone who has any wishes of making sure that they are adequately being rated and evaluated for their work, and especially if you are considering promotion. So taking the time to work with your manager or to work with someone in HR to actually understand how does performance evaluation work inside of this company? What is the process that's in place? Who are the people that are involved in it? And what is your specific role? If you can go and understand that, you're going to be informed about if you do want to shine in the performance evaluation process or say you do want to get promoted, you're going to have a clear understanding of the steps you need to take in order to achieve it. And if you want to get promoted this year, one of the action items you should really take down and do right now is to go learn about the performance evaluation process. Another example of applying organizational acumen is identifying the cultural norms and behaviors that are important to advance and succeed inside of the organization. Culture really is really critical and varies company to company. And as a result of that, the specific behaviors that are important that you model are going to vary company to company. Taking the time to understand what those behaviors are and then being able to incorporate them into whatever you're working towards, whatever goal you have, is going to make sure that you get properly rewarded for what you are doing. The third and final example I have is this idea of finding the influential people inside of your organization. These are people who they either have formal or informal influence, either because they have power or because they just are incredibly influential, and better understanding what they specifically are doing that makes them influential and seeing what you can learn from them or what you can even model in how you continue to operate. So being able to go and find those individuals and then talking to them to see what they think or what they've seen work in order for people to be successful, that's another way of having organizational acumen. And if you're not sure who those people are, go ask around. You'll be able to find them. If you go and just ask your colleagues or people you trust, hey, who are some people here who have formal or informal influence? What are they doing that makes them influential? And going and then talking to them. Those are just examples of different ways you can apply organizational acumen. And again, when you have that knowledge of all of those things, it just makes whatever you're trying to work towards more clear as to what steps you might need to take, what actions you might need to take in order for you to actually go and achieve them. And so a quick exercise that you can go and do to better get a baseline for where your organizational acumen is today is called the 3 R's. And that stands for relationships, rules, and rewards. So relationships, this is all about assessing and understanding who are the important people that are in my orbit, who gets along with who works with who, and who influences who. And being able to map that out and understand that is going to be helpful to you as you think about in particular when you are going to need to ask for help or support for getting exposure or for getting more opportunities, etc. The other one are rules. What are the explicit and implicit rules that I should be aware of when I have to get things done or when I have to ask for stuff? And being able to understand what those are or document them or ask other people what they are so that you know how to act, that can be really helpful. And then rewards. What are those behaviors or actions that get rewarded? When I do this, I get rewarded. That's what you want to find out. Because if you can understand what those are and you can start to incorporate them as you work towards your goal, you're probably going to increase your likelihood that you're going to be successful in terms of achieving that goal. Okay, so a couple actions you can take now in addition to that. Number 1, go and map the key relationships and stakeholders that are in your network as it relates to the work that you're doing and anything related towards your career growth. So map out who those key people are. And what I would do for this is identify to the degree that you understand, what are their specific goals? What are their specific KPIs or OKRs or objectives, as well as what are their strengths? Being able to do that is going to make you more informed and to help you think about, A, how can they help me? But also B, how can I help them? And that's going to, again, increase your organizational acumen. The next thing you can do is really get clear on those implicit and explicit norms and rules. Going to seek out information on both of these for how things get done on your team, in your organization, in your business unit is going to be really helpful. One example of this, if you can go and answer the question, do you know the specific process for how people get promoted and rewarded at your company? That tells me you're on a good spot to understanding organizational acumen. And if you can't, go and find out the answer to that. Okay, so just to sum up, organizational acumen is your knowledge, insight, and understanding of the visible and invisible norms inside your company. When you have this, you can better understand how you can operate and act in terms of achieving and working towards your career goals. And look, we all work in an organization that is larger than ourselves and our ambition. And so when we understand the dynamics of the system, including the people, the relationships between the people, and the rules and norms, we can position ourselves to be successful within it. Each organization has its own cultural norms, behaviors, and rules. Some of these are explicit, but some are implicit. When you better understand what they are, you can better understand how to incorporate them into the work that you do. Finally, at the end of the day, an organization is just a bunch of people that's working towards shared goals. When we know what our goals, but when we also know what other people's goals, we can better identify how we can work with them to achieve our goals, but also support theirs. We live in an organization that is bigger than ourselves and our ambition, and we can be successful towards working towards our own career goals when we better understand all that it is around us. And that's all I have today around organizational acumen. Hi, everyone. Al D here. Thank you for listening to the Everyday Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love your support. First, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast. And second, if you found this episode helpful, please consider sharing it with a peer or friend who might benefit. Finally, as a keynote speaker and leadership development trainer, I love speaking to audiences at conferences and events and directly working with organizations to develop their leaders. If you or your organization would benefit from hearing my message around leadership in the workplace or need help with leadership or people development, please reach out to me via the contact information in the show notes. I'd love to work with you. Thank you so much for your support.